After the school shooting in Parkland, Florida this past February, young people across the country mobilized, fighting for gun control and promising action against politicians who were not on board. And they didn't just talk the talk, they walked the walk. Young voters turned out at the highest rate in decades for last week's midterm elections, with roughly 31% of 18 to 29-year-olds casting votes, according to early estimates from Tufts University. An overall on NBC News exit poll found 60% of voters support stricter gun control. As a result, on the day before yet another mass shooting, this time in Thousand Oaks, California, at least 15 Republican incumbents in the House with an A rating from the NRA were ousted by Democrats with F ratings. So is this mission accomplished? I'm joined now by two of the students behind March for Our Lives. Vikiana Petit-Homme. Did I get it close?
Yeah.
Close. Oh, you're so kind. She's a senior at Boston Latin Academy. Felix Brody's a junior at Somerville High. Felix, it's great to meet you. Along with Rey Junco, a senior researcher at Tuft Center for Information Research on Civic Learning and Engagement. Rey, thanks for being here, too. Is it mission accomplished? Do you feel you did what you set out to do in the midterm elections?
I think it was a very great first step. I think there's a lot more to be done, and it will get done, but I think November 6th was a great first step.
Do you agree with that analysis?
Yeah, I agree. I think everything that we could have hoped for happened with this short period of time that March for Our Lives was formed until the midterms. But I think we, like Vikiana said, we got places to go. You
know, one of the things that I think I don't know if you've communicated with any of your colleagues in Parkland since, even though there are recounts, as you all know, in the governor's race and the Senate race there, two people who were historically favorites of the NRA appear to be the winners. DeSantis in the governor's race and Rick Scott, the governor who is at least ahead temporarily. How big a blow is that when in the home state of this Parkland atrocity, it appears the two highest ranking officials are NRA-friendly people? I
think it's disappointing, but I think what's important to realize is that March for Our Lives is definitely not only about Florida. It's a national movement, and there are successes across the nation. So focusing too much on Florida, it's not a great idea.
Are you confident I mean, obviously the House is in the hand of Democrats. It's pretty much a pro-gun control majority. Are you confident, even if they don't have the votes in the Senate, to do something, that the House is going to at least initiate something?
I think we can't sit back and say, oh, well, I'm sure they'll do it. I think what we have to do is continue to put pressure on congresspeople, whether or not they're Democrats or Republicans, to do something. You know,
Rey, I mentioned a minute ago, I assume I was right, and you correct me if I was wrong. Young people did vote, was it 18 to 29 is the break?
Yep.
Voted in record numbers, yes?
Yep, record, 31%.
And 31% to me is still pathetic, but it's higher because that means obviously 69. But 31% is significantly higher than, for example, in most recent midterms in 2014.
Oh yeah, right? No, certainly. It's at least 10 points higher than it's been in about a decade.
And what do you think? Well, Alan Solomon, who's the dean of your school, was here a couple of weeks ago, and in addition to sharing some 30-something% projections in advance, he cited something that I thought would probably make these two happy, that those young people for whom, correct me if I'm wrong please, for whom gun control was the single most important issue, they were likely to vote in the 50% margin. Do we have any evidence to suggest that that was a projection, that actually happened, that gun-focused, gun control-focused young voters turned out in even higher numbers? Do we know?
We don't know for sure yet. We will have data on that, but it's going to take a little while to get those data.
Do we know why they turned out in larger numbers? I mean, what do you think the motivation was?
Well, one of the analyses that that I did was looking at young people and their engagement and their activism, and not just with Parkland, but with any issue. And what we saw was that there was a threefold increase from 2016 in youth attending a demonstration, for instance. And so,
motivated by what? If not guns, what are other things that cause young people to go to a demonstration or to vote? What are
healthcare, immigration, any of those kinds of things. Certainly, gun control in Parkland was a major piece. Black Lives Matter, you know, there are lots of different ones that they could have attended March for. Yeah.
You know, one of the things I admire, whenever I've had, you've been here before, you haven't been here before. When I vote, I'm a little bit older than you two, you probably know that. When I vote in an election and don't get an outcome I want, I don't have nearly the positive outlook you do about the future, and I know it to be true in you, which I really admire. So what's next? I mean, you talk about this is one step in the fight. What's the next step in this fight for you guys?
Well, one thing that we've said is that it doesn't stop after this election. We're trying to get students and young people to vote for every election. So that includes city council elections in 2019. That includes 2020. We have to continue this effort.
And also, this effort was part of that 50 miles more march, obviously from Worcester to Springfield to Smith Weston, which continues in this state to legally manufacture the exact same assault weapons that are banned in this state since 2004. Are more of those things on the agenda, high-profile kinds of things that grab people's attention?
They definitely are. And I know you were talking about us talking to our colleagues in Parkland, and it's something that we're working across the country to do, is to get gun manufacturers to own up to being part of the solution.
Do you lose hope? I mean, I said it a minute ago. I am stunned because I've had a bunch of you guys, including you before here. Do you just keep rolling on and pushing on, and you don't say, oh, my God, the Senate's in pro-gun hands, the President of the United States is in the pocket of the NRA? It doesn't...
I think if you look at Florida, you have a perfect example where you have these two NRA-backed politicians. It looks like they're going to win, but they won by tens of thousands of votes. A teeny percent. 1.4 million people just gained the right to vote in Florida. There is voter suppression happening across our country. So while we might not have these high-profile victories, we keep building up momentum. We keep getting people to vote. They're going to vote for the right people.
Are they, right? Does this have potential to be a one-and-done kind of thing on the part of young people? Or is your experience when they do vote with some level of enthusiasm, they're likely to become, in your next poll, likely voters or whatever the descriptor is?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's
absolutely the latter.
There's absolutely the latter. There's absolutely a snowball effect that, and the earlier that young people get involved, the more likely it is going to be a lifetime thing for them.
And by the way, speaking of early, neither of you are old enough to vote, but we were talking before you went on, thanks to a law change that was signed by Deval Patrick, 16 and 17-year-olds, even though they can't vote yet, can register to vote, which both of you did. Is that correct?
Yes, we're both registered to vote, and we're hoping to take it a step further by pushing for lowering the voting age to 16 this upcoming few years.
I'm with you. When are you voting? When's the first election you'll be able to vote in?
2019 city council elections in Boston.
How do you feel about that?
Excited.
When's the first election for you?
2020.
I bet you're going to vote, aren't you?
I am going to vote.
I knew you would. Vikiana, congratulations. Thanks so much. Felix, great to see you again. I'm sorry I got your name wrong, as I do every time you're here. Pleasure to see you, Ray. Thanks so much for your time.